think they did walk out of there thinking that
So I was going to just look and see what that
Heidi, right? We need to add our values to everything we do, our agendas, our sterling, everything, because that's what we live by. And I haven't been putting those on our agendas.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the district offices. Here we are for bargaining at this bright and early hour of the morning. It's lovely to see you people here. So hopefully we can make some progress today. The last meeting we provided some proposals to CTA, and so we were just waiting for your response or counter proposals.
All right. Yeah, you gave us a salary offer, and we did look at that. And as you said, we weren't ready to respond at that time. And so we are ready to respond now. But first, before we give you, any amounts, we just have a little information we'd like to share before we move forward. And so Gordon is going to do that for us.
Okay.
Gordon.
Thank you. No. Our offer today is quite similar to the previous one. There have been a few adjustments. You'll notice right up front with the spreadsheet here on display that the numbers, and we have documents to pass out to you, so there's not a whole lot of need to write a whole lot of things down here. You'll notice that we've adopted all of the same numbers that you did with respect to evaluation numbers, with respect to the amounts there. I actually realized looking at the spreadsheet that, thank you, that the estimated salary varied on an average per employment category. And so that made sense to bring that in exactly the same. We also adjusted our cost of living adjustment to match yours at 0.5%. We did keep the total overall increase for highly effective at 4.5% for this particular counter proposal to you all. A total cost of $32.8 million. We do believe that it represents, I hope I get the right button here. We do believe it represents responsibility in what we're asking for. This is a graph you've seen before in a presentation a couple of years ago, and it's been updated to show the entire movement since then. We're still on a declining line as a share of the general revenue. We understand that, and under some circumstances it might trouble us as a group, but we also understand that this state does from time to time provide earmarks for some funds that come in, necessitating some of that. Just as a number of years ago when they provided the significant earmark for teacher salary increases, I believe that would have been represented somewhere back in here. So you can see that stays easily flat or even a little increase. So we recognize that may be the case. Nevertheless, what we're asking for does represent a real growth of 3% after adjusting for attrition savings that occur with the departure of retirees and some experienced teachers, and then the hiring of those with less experience that coming in at lower salary levels. We believe it's responsible to fund this proposal because in the last 3 years, and using the ending point for 2016, in the last 3 years, there's been a total increase of $55 million in the fund balance. There was $11 million here, there was $20 million here, and there was an additional $24 million added to the fund balance in that particular year. So again, we don't necessarily believe that we're asking for the moon. We believe our ask is very responsible and yet adequately rewards teachers for what they've been doing over the years to continue to keep Palm Beach County one of the highest, if not the highest, rated urban district in the state of Florida as a matter of teacher performance. We can go back to that first slide, and if you have any questions, we can start to pass out some paper. Just leave this displayed for now, or go back and forth as needed. Any clarification at this point? That, by the way, that fund balance that we talked about before, for this year of $182 million does represent 8.6% of the general revenue, which is nearly 3 times what the state requires for an annual fund balance. Just another point about this not being an off-the-wall ask, being something that's actually very reasonable and very doable as we see the numbers.
vote on it, it stays with it?
Mhm.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one.
That would be
Theo.
the,
I didn't have
if you need to see a different picture, just let me know, Mr. Burke.
Yeah, I appreciate all the hard work you've put into it, and I understand where you're coming from, but we're not at the point where we're using last best final for our last offer, but we're pretty close. We don't have the money to up the offer. The last offer we gave you is 0.5% more than what the board authorized us to give you. The amount of money we have is what we have. We don't have any more to give, and taking from the fund balance, we've talked about this before, of that financially, and it's not responsible on our part to keep, going into that pot of funds for various reasons. But, I'll turn the mic over to Mr. Burke, but the last offer we gave you, we can't go any higher than what we gave you. And the problem that we have is that with the evaluation and the way we've done it, we negotiated to do it, we're setting it approximately 98% going to be highly effective. 98%. So the money that we would have used to make highly effective more was based on the fact that effective and lower had to be less, right? So that was some savings. The fact that we used to have a fund that we could go to that had, money that we would kind of recoup at the end of the year, where we had teachers with lots of years of experience retiring, and then we bring in people with lower experience coming in. That gave us some savings. People retiring through attrition, we were able to save some money. With the referendum, which, put a lot of money in the teachers' pockets and is a fantastic thing that we all did together, we don't have the people retiring that used to retire. We don't have the people coming in with less years of experience. They're coming in with more, which is great for our students. It's great for the district as a whole. But that pot of money that we usually relied on to give more than what we used to be able to give from what the board had budgeted to provide as raises, that money's not there anymore. So the days where we could keep going back and forth with, moving towards closer to where you want, those days are pretty much over at this point. And I'll let Mr. Burke go more into detail about that, but I'm not sure we can go beyond the 3% we've already offered.
So, there was misinformation this year about the state budget. We really did not get a 3% increase from the state. There was a shell game with the best and brightest money moving into the FEFP that artificially inflated that number. We really got more of about a 1.6% increase, which we've been hovering in the 1%. The year before that was like 1.39, 1.37. We've been getting all these 1% raises. We work hard and we stretch to get to about a 3% settlement package. As part of my job, I have to look out for the well-being, the financial well-being anyway of the district for multiple years into the future. So we're not just looking at this year, we look 2-3 years ahead. The 3-year forecast coming out of the state has the state, they're banking on a 1.12% increase for next year. And in years 2 and 3, they have a structural imbalance in their budget, which means the high priority and critical needs exceed the expected revenue at this point. So we don't have an optimistic forecast looking forward. We need to be responsible with the dollars we do have and keep the district on a nice steady track. Our fund balance is pretty stable. I can show you comparisons to other districts where they've overspent and are spiraling down, and you've got a group of districts where we're right kind of in the middle of the pack, just trying to keep an adequate level of reserves. So we can debate about the financial condition of the district. We're not going to run this district into the ground to go above and spend beyond our means in any one given year. And we feel like 3% is a pretty good package. I think it's commensurate with what's going around with the state. And when you couple it with what we were able to achieve with the referendum, it was a pretty banner year. So I'm sorry we're not closer together at this point in the negotiations, and this may take some time.
Yeah, so, we hear what you're saying. We understand, obviously, the way the legislature packages the increase. It's similar to the proposal that you guys submitted to us, where it says 5.52, and it includes the best and brightest money. So we understand that there's an attempt to spin, everyone attempts to spin data to make it look like the district didn't get as much as they said they were supposed to, or we're getting more than we're, based on this, it's saying we're getting a 5.5% raise because it includes state money that when you make a presentation to the school board, you make clear to back out because that money doesn't technically exist for any general purpose. So we understand the predicament that everyone's in, but based on the information provided, and I can tell you firsthand from speaking to legislators, specifically Republican legislators, and this goes back to Rick Scott calling out the district about our fund balance, is that one of the reasons why Republicans in the legislature say we don't need to increase funding is because they look at fund balances for the districts every year, and when they see those fund balances go up, they say they're not spending the money we're giving them. Why would we increase funding to the level that they're asking? That's what I hear from our local Republican legislators, as well as people who I talk to through government, who speak to Republicans throughout the state, and they control everything up there, so they're the ones you got to listen to. There's a direct correlation, at least in our opinion, that the decrease in the percent allocated to teacher pay corresponds to an increase in the fund balance every year. And for all the earmarks and things that you're supposed to be spending money on, I've never heard anyone in Tallahassee, when they appropriated funds for a school district, say this money is to be stashed in a savings account, not spent. That's just not the intended use, any more than it would be the intended use if you appropriated funds for a department in this building, and when they didn't spend it, that department said, you know what, we're going to hold on to that money and just stash it somewhere. You would take it back, or you would ask them to spend it. So we're asking you to spend the money you've been given, because the savings account, essentially, we understand, that you can't predict the future, and who knows what the legislature is going to do, who knows if there's going to be a recession or a depression, but that's an excuse that could be used each and every year forever, because it's predicated on the idea that the future is unknown, which is the nature of the future. So we can't accept this argument that there hypothetically might be some recession, there might be some issue with funding. That's a foolproof argument to never have to actually do anything close to what we're asking for. So we're just asking you to take the money that you've been allocated over the years, some of which is in your reserve fund now, and spend that on the teachers who have produced high-quality results for the students and for the district. Every year we come into these board meetings and everyone touts and praises all the teachers. They talk about how we're an A district now for the past 2 years. Hard work deserves an honest pay, and what we're really asking for at the end of the day, we're off by 1%. We're off by about $9 million. And when you look at the excess reserves, when you look at the decreased overall spending on teacher pay, when you look at the fact that the district's offer is half funded through attrition, so even the initial raise or your current raise offer of 3.25% for highly effective, you're not putting in 3.25% new funds. You're using attrition savings, regardless of the decrease in attrition because of the referendum. There still is significant annual attrition savings. We're just asking. We're asking for you to give us what we believe is affordable and fair. I just don't know how we can't hang our hat on the referendum, because that in 4 years could disappear. You could have a new superintendent, new school board members. You could have new laws that are written. One's already been written to share it with charters. There's no guarantee of anything. And just like you guys want to hedge and say you don't know how bad it might be, so you don't want to overcommit, we don't know how good or bad it might be, so we're not going to undercommit and sell ourselves short. We're willing to work with you on this, but as I said at the school board meeting, there's no conceivable scenario where we accept less than last year, and even accepting last year's number is a failure in my belief on my part as leader of this organization to see appropriate growth commensurate to our work. Like, we understand your predicament. We don't reject that is one way to put it, but there are other ways to put it that are also fiscally responsible. We're not going to drive the school district into the ground by asking for $9 million out of $182 million sitting in a rainy day fund. I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of what we're asking you to do. We've seen other bargaining units get higher percentages over the past couple of years. We understand it because of the size of our unit. Understandably, it's more difficult to give us 12,000 people the same raise you might give a couple hundred police officers, but the district has made significant improvements in pay for other bargaining units that is permanent. So,
I have to stop you right there. We have not given any unit higher than what we gave you. They took their pot of money and spent it differently. You're kind of hemmed in by what the state statute says we can do with the money that we gave you. School police, they got 3%. That was the amount that we gave them. They determined, because their division has grown, it's now twice the size it was before, that they could take that money and put almost all of it into raising the rates of the long-term officers we've had versus the brand-new hires who got nothing. So that was how they got that raise. But to say that we have invested more in other units is completely inaccurate, and I think that leads people, give them a false sense that I don't want anybody to have leaving this room. Everybody that was offered was 3%. They just spent it differently. So if we had other groups that got more, they got more because they did it at the disadvantage of other members of their bargaining unit. So let's just be clear on that. Everybody has gotten the same raise. In fact, if we've given anybody more, it's been CTA.
Well, what we want to do, be clear about, though, is we're asking for that 1% increase in our requests to come from the fund balance. And we're saying that we have 182 million in the fund balance. And over the past 3 years, you can see that it increased over 55 million. So we're not really asking to disrupt or bankrupt the district. We're just asking for a small percentage of where the growth is taking place. And the money does exist. It's not something that doesn't exist. It does exist. And and we did have these increases as we went along each year. And then to add to that, each year, the salaries are a smaller percentage of the district's overall budget. And so, again, we're not being, asking for a lot. We're asking for a small percentage of the increases that the district has generated. And I didn't hear you say anything about the amount of the required reserve funds that you need to keep in place. And so we believe that you have more than met that requirement. And so to give us that $9 million we're asking for should not be a challenge.
Well, Mr. Mitchell wants to make a correction on
Sure.
something.
Just clarification, I'm
Pull
sorry.
your mic.
Microphone. Pull that towards you.
Sorry, just a clarification question, if I may. Gordon, could we go to the Excel slide on your presentation?
Sure.
Take a mic
That
with
one?
you.
Yes, thank you.
Mark, take a mic with you.
Got to get used to the new drill here, right? These mics.
All right.
So is it the intention of your proposal to have the highly effective and effective have the COLA, right? So this already,
That includes the COLA, yes.
that includes the COLA. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, it looks to me like we're going to have a deeper discussion about the district's budget and our financial position, and I'm going to need to do a little presentation probably to put together to try to explain my side of the story. I would really hope we would not listen to Rick Scott's rhetoric and some of our leaders in this Tallahassee, because that slam on school districts about these big fund balances was incredibly hypocritical. The state prides themselves on maintaining about a 15% fund balance. If we were listening to the national, the GFO finance officers, they'd say we should have at least 10 to 15%. So, to me, I'm not going to make any apologies for being in the 8% to 9% range. We've worked to kind of stabilize things, and you do want to bolster reserves a little bit when you think you're heading into an economic downturn. We are an unprecedented run of economic growth in our country, and no one knows when that may stop, but odds are it's going to be sooner rather than later. We did have to grow our fund balance to some extent in the board's contingency reserve because we have the board has a 3% policy. When the budget gets bigger, we have to contribute more to that. Our budget got bigger significantly because of the referendum, so to stay in compliance, we had to bolster that reserve. The referendum brought in about $200 million a year. Prior to the increase, it was bringing in about $50 million a year. So that additional revenue of $150 million necessitated like 3% of that be put in reserve. So I guess we'll have to debate where we stand on the money, but at the end of the day, it's kind of my job to make sure that the school board gets the best information and can make decisions that puts the school district in the best place They certainly value our teachers and have made it a priority. You know, I guess it's just, we felt like we were doing pretty good the last few years to get to 3%, and we wanted to try to keep that going and keep something that was steady and kind of reliable and not, you know, blow the bank one year so that then we're in 2 or 3 years of misery. And when you talk about spending fund balance on raises, you have to be very careful because sometimes you accumulate money. It's like a savings account that you put into over time, and it may be one-time money. We did, you know, we get some reimbursements from the state for hurricane-related stuff or impact aid from where we had students from displaced from hurricanes, and we get a little money. You know, we may put it into the reserve, but you don't want to take one-time money and then spend it on a recurring salary increase that you're going to have to pay for year after year after year, and kind of reverse that trend where you start to see the fund balance start tanking year after year, and then you find yourself kind of in a critical situation. So, you know, I appreciate the work you put into it. We'll go back, and I want to kind of dig into your numbers and then, you know, present our side of it and why we feel like our offer is fair and is competitive with the budget that we have.
All right, so I guess you're going to go in and come back?
Well, do you have, we will on the money, do you have any counters to the written proposal, the language proposals we have? Or have you given us everything at this point?
Well, when I review the items that have been put forth, all of your items have been addressed by us.
Okay.
The Article 2, Section V, job sharing, we TA'd that one.
Right.
Article 3, Section O, working conditions, substitutes, and interim employees, we're keeping present language.
Okay.
On the Article 5, specific paid leaves, we're keeping, on 2B, we're keeping the present language.
So there's no.
I'm sorry, we TA'd Article 5.
Okay.
Specific. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I didn't think we TA'd that one.
No, we didn't. No, that's an error. That's an error. But we TA'd Appendix E, family medical leave.
Keep the present language.
Has there been any further consideration about giving that protection to the first week that students are in session and the last week their students are in session to require that, or to state that you cannot take personal leave during that time unless it's for one of the already listed exceptions?
No.
So you're not considering it, or I don't quite understand, just the no.
Yeah, we're saying we're keeping present language on those.
Okay. Well, I think in light of that, I think we're kind of at a standstill today. So we will discuss it. Mr. Burke can prepare a presentation. We may have to go to the board. We'll certainly provide them with a detail of where we are, where the parties are. I'll do that when I get back to the office today, but I'm not sure we can really make any movement today.
Okay, let me just make a correction. On Article 5, specific paid leaves, on your proposal, we're keeping present language. On our proposal for bereavement leave, that part is still open.
So that's another amount of money that you're asking for?
Correct.
Okay.
As well as Appendix D is still open as well.
Right, which is that the
Additional period supplement.
additional period supplement?
Right. And then Article 8, compensation and benefits, Section N, as it relates to the PDD day for mandatory in-service.
I think at this point, I don't know that we're even in the same ballpark to have any further discussions on those language issues. You know, this proposal that you've given with this money is requiring us to, which in your mind, going into the fund balance, and then you're asking for 3 other things that would additionally require us to go into the fund balance and take more money out of that to fund those proposals. So we're going to have to go back and reassess where we are and figure out what our next steps are going to be.
Anything else?
Dates for next session.
Okay, so So I guess our next step then would be to set up dates for our next.
And we'll send you, I'll send you some emails. I have to go and look and see when this room's available. It gets really difficult. Hopefully, we can get another session in before the winter break. But like I said, because we have to have it filmed, it has to be in this room. That becomes increasingly difficult, but we'll see what we can do. They may be in shorter time periods, maybe an hour or two, but we'll see what we can find.
Okay, just so you know,
I know you're going to be out of town for the rest of November.
well, until I'll be back the 21st.
Okay. All right. So we'll see what we can do after the 21st of November then.
After Thanksgiving.
Well, there is that week, the 21st, there is the week, I think, aren't we there that week?
2 days, there's 2 days there, Thursday and Friday,
Okay.
so,
Well, we'll see what's available.
all right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.